Every time you pull the trigger at the gasoline pump, you are participating in the largest transfer of wealth in the history of human civilization. A silent tax designed in mahogany boardrooms to ensure you stay tethered to a system of artificial scarcity. Behind the skyrocketing prices and the fluctuating charts lies a fundamental lie of physics that has been sold to the public for over a century, claiming that your internal combustion engine is a marvel of efficiency when, in reality, it is a primitive furnace that wastes 70% of the energy it consumes. In 1974, at the height of the global energy crisis, a breakthrough occurred that threatened the very foundations of the petroleum empire, a discovery that proved a single dollar's worth of a common industrial liquid could triple the mileage of any vehicle on the road today. This was not a miracle of high-tech engineering or complex mechanical overhaul, but a simple chemical correction at the molecular level that the titans of big oil spent billions to bury, erase, and systematically remove from the public consciousness. You have been conditioned to believe that 80 miles per gallon is a fantasy of the future, yet in the damp archives of forgotten patents, the evidence remains that this was an achievable reality 50 years ago, long before the industry decided that your dependency was more profitable than your freedom. The year 1974 was a flashpoint for the global economy, a moment when the world stood still as oil embargoes turned gasoline into a currency more valuable than gold. And it was in this chaos that independent inventors began exposing the petroleum industry's greatest weakness. While the public waited in mile-long lines for a few gallons of fuel, men like Tom Ogle and Charles Pogue were demonstrating vehicles that could traverse entire states on a single tank of gas, using a process of fuel vaporization that made the traditional carburetor look like a child's toy. They discovered that the liquid gasoline sitting in your tank is not what actually burns. It is the vaporized gas that powers the pistons. But yet the automotive industry intentionally designed delivery systems that spray heavy droplets, ensuring that most of your fuel never fully combusts and instead exits your exhaust as toxic waste. One specific chemical compound, a liquid used in everything from high-altitude aviation to industrial cleaning, was found to act as a potent catalyst that breaks the surface tension of gasoline, transforming the inefficient spray into a superfine mist that burns with nearly 100% efficiency. This liquid, which you can purchase for less than the price of a cup of coffee, represents the ultimate threat to a $3 trillion industry that relies on you wasting 3 gallons for every 1 gallon of actual motion. To understand why this secret was buried, you must first understand the mechanical sabotage built into every car sitting on every dealership lot in America, a concept known as planned obsolescence hidden under the guise of emission standards. Your engine is essentially a massive heat sink designed to convert the vast majority of your expensive fuel into useless heat rather than kinetic energy, a design choice that serves no purpose other than to keep you returning to the pump twice a week. When you add a mere 2 ounces of a high-purity surface tension reducer to 10 gallons of standard unleaded fuel, the molecular structure of the liquid changes, allowing the injectors to atomize the fuel at a level that modern computers are programmed to ignore. The industry spent millions lobbying for regulations that would make it nearly impossible for independent inventors to bring these catalysts to market, citing safety concerns that were scientifically fabricated to protect the quarterly earnings of Exxon and Shell. By 1978, the patents for these chemical additives were being bought up by the petroleum giants and placed under national security gag orders, ensuring that the technology would never see the light of day in a commercial setting, while the military continued to use similar formulations for their long-range reconnaissance missions. During World War II, fighter pilots facing the daunting task of crossing the vast expanses of the Pacific discovered that their range could be dramatically extended by using water methanol injection, a predecessor to the very liquid the industry wants you to forget. This wasn't just about cooling the engine, it was about the molecular dissociation of the fuel-air mixture, allowing a small engine to produce the power of a Titan while consuming a fraction of the fuel. After the war, this technology was systematically stripped from civilian vehicles, replaced by heavier, more inefficient designs that prioritize the consumption of petroleum over the preservation of resources. The liquid in question is a pure, high-grade solvent that, when introduced in precise ratios, prevents the clumping of gasoline molecules, a phenomenon that occurs naturally in your tank and prevents total combustion. Big Oil's greatest nightmare is not the electric car, which still relies on a grid they often control, but the $1 liquid that turns your current vehicle into a long-range survival machine that doesn't need their overpriced premium blends to run. They didn't stop this technology because it failed. They stopped it because it worked too well. And a population that doesn't need to buy fuel is a population that they can no longer dominate or track through financial transactions. The science behind this is almost insulting in its simplicity, involving the reduction of the liquid's van der Waals forces, which are the molecular stickiness that causes gasoline to form large droplets that resist burning. By introducing a polar solvent that costs pennies to manufacture, you're essentially pre-processing the fuel before it even reaches the combustion chamber, allowing for a lean burn cycle that would normally destroy a standard engine but is stabilized by the chemical catalyst. In the 1970s, independent labs across the Midwest were documenting mileage increases from 22 miles per gallon to over 65, using nothing more than a vacuum-sealed vaporization chamber and a steady supply of this common industrial liquid. These labs were promptly shut down, their equipment seized under eminent domain, and the scientists involved were offered consulting positions at major oil firms on the condition that they never publish their findings again. The records of these tests were moved to the same secure vaults that hold the secrets of high-efficiency batteries and permanent rust prevention, guarded by a legal wall of non-disclosure agreements that spans 3 generations. If you look closely at the safety data sheets of the fuel injector cleaners sold at your local auto parts store for $15 a bottle, you will find a diluted, weakened version of this exact same liquid listed as the primary active ingredient. The industry takes a 3-cent dose of the raw chemical, mixes it with useless mineral spirits to prevent it from being too effective, and sells it back to you at a 4,000% markup while claiming it's a revolutionary breakthrough. They give you just enough to keep your engine running, but never enough to actually break your dependency, a carefully calibrated dose of maintenance that ensures you never realize that your car is capable of so much more. This is the ultimate corporate shell game, where the solution to your highest monthly expense is sitting on a shelf right next to you, disguised by aggressive marketing and proprietary trade names that hide its true identity. By using the pure, undiluted version of this liquid, you are bypassing the corporate filter and accessing the raw chemical power that the military and elite racing teams have used in secret for decades to achieve impossible speeds and distances. The suppression of the fish carburetor and the Ogle fuel system are the most documented cases of industrial sabotage in the 20th century, where inventors who achieved over 100 miles per gallon were either silenced by buyouts or met with mysterious accidents just as they reached mass production. In every case, the common denominator was a specialized liquid catalyst that allowed their mechanical designs to transcend the limitations of traditional fluid dynamics. The automotive industry claims that your car's computer, or ECU, is designed to optimize performance, but in reality, it is programmed with fuel maps that are intentionally rich, meaning they force the engine to use more gas than necessary to keep the catalytic converter hot. When you introduce the $1 catalyst, the burn becomes so clean and so efficient that the computer often tries to fight back, sensing that the oxygen sensors are too clean and throwing a check engine light to scare the average driver into returning to the mechanic. This is a digital fence designed to keep you inside the corral of high consumption, a software-based lock on a hardware-based problem that only a few people in the prepping and survivalist communities have learned how to pick. The liquid you need is high-purity isopropyl alcohol or 100% pure acetone, but not the watered-down versions found in beauty salons or grocery stores which contain oils and scents that will gum up your intake. When sourced in its technical grade, this liquid acts as a powerful surfactant, reducing the surface tension of gasoline by over 30%, which allows the fuel to atomize into particles so small they behave more like a gas than a liquid. The ratio is critical, approximately 2 to 3 ounces for every 10 gallons of fuel, a concentration so low it won't damage your seals or gaskets, but high enough to change the physics of the combustion cycle. This is the no mechanic solution because it requires no tools, no turning of wrenches, and no complex wiring. It is a simple matter of chemical addition that turns your fuel tank into a high-efficiency laboratory. The industry hates this because it is unpatentable, as these are naturally occurring industrial chemicals that have existed for over a century, meaning no single corporation can own the rights to your increased mileage. Modern vehicles are increasingly being designed with sealed fuel systems and complex sensors, specifically to prevent the end user from experimenting with these catalysts, a trend that accelerated after the declassification of the 1974 energy reports. They want you to believe that the only way to save money on gas is to buy a brand new $30,000 hybrid, a vehicle that requires more energy to manufacture than it will ever save in its lifetime. The green revolution is often just another layer of corporate control, moving the goalposts from petroleum dependency to rare earth metal dependency, all while the solution for your existing internal combustion engine remains buried in the past. If the public were to adopt this $1 liquid solution en masse, the global demand for oil would collapse by 40% in a single month, a scenario that would bankrupt entire nations and dismantle the power structures that have dictated human history since the Industrial Revolution. This is why the information is not on the nightly news. It is a threat to the global financial order that relies on your constant, inefficient consumption of a finite resource. There is a reason why the EPA's own testing protocols for fuel additives are so expensive and legally dense that no small business can ever hope to clear them. It is a regulatory moat built by the very companies the EPA is supposed to monitor. In the late 1990s, a series of independent tests in Australia proved that surface tension reducers could increase the range of a standard diesel truck by nearly 50%, while reducing particulate emissions to almost zero. These tests were never allowed to be replicated in the United States, as the patents for the specific delivery systems were purchased by a subsidiary of a major oil firm and immediately shelved for the next 25 years. We are living in a technological dark age of our own making, where we have the answers to our most pressing energy needs, but are forbidden from using them by a legal system that prioritizes the intellectual property of the elite over the survival of the common man. You are currently paying for the privilege of being inefficient, a tax on your ignorance that adds up to thousands of dollars every year that could stay in your pocket if you simply understood the chemistry of the fuel you're buying. Preparation and self-reliance are the only true defenses against a system that views you as a harvestable resource. And knowing how to triple your range is the ultimate survival skill in an era of increasing instability. Whether it's a planned shortage, a natural disaster, or simply the steady crawl of inflation, the ability to make 10 gallons do the work of 30 is the difference between being mobile and being a victim. You won't find this information in your owner's manual, and your local mechanic likely doesn't know it either, as his training was funded by the same manufacturers who benefit from your car's programmed waste. This is the knowledge the Forbidden Camping Vault was built to protect, the siphoned-off secrets of a discarded era where inventors still believed in solving problems rather than managing them for profit. By reclaiming this $1 secret, you are taking the first step toward exiting a grid that was designed to keep you trapped, turning your vehicle into a tool of liberation rather than a rolling debt machine. This investigation into the 1974 fuel suppression is just one chapter in a much larger story of hidden technologies that have been kept from you to ensure your total reliance on the industrial machine. From the way you heat your home to the way you purify your water, there are cheap, effective, and ancient methods that have been repackaged as luxury services or banned entirely to protect corporate revenue. The engine is just the beginning. The vault contains the blueprints for a life lived entirely outside their control, using the very science they spent billions to make you forget. As the world moves toward the next manufactured crisis, those who hold this knowledge will be the only ones who can move freely, while the rest remain stuck in the lines, waiting for a permission to travel that may never come. This is the story of the $1 liquid that killed the gas industry's monopoly, a secret that empires trusted and corporations buried, and it is finally back in your hands. Everything the automotive industry tried to hide is waiting for you in the vault, where the truth about your car's true potential is finally declassified for those brave enough to look.